All right, Dean Lucky, Matt DeBerry, another edition of Riding Home. We're going to try some fact or fiction here, Matt. We're going to try to keep it light and keep it going here. Okay, fact or fiction, Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama will all be in the playoff in 2022.
I think that's a fact. I think they're the three best teams. So it's hard to say fiction there. And I guess that assumes that Georgia and Alabama both run the table in the regular season and maybe square off again in an SEC championship, play it close. And I still think both could get in. Maybe Texas A&M is a championship caliber team a year sooner than a lot of people think. But I think Alabama is probably the number one team going into the season. And Ohio State, I don't see them losing to Michigan the way they did last year. They're going to be out for revenge. They're going to be on a revenge tour this year. They're going to win that conference. And there's always a chance they could slip up to maybe a Purdue or an Iowa, something like that. But I don't see them getting upset by Michigan this year. CJ Stroud, probably not as, I think most people think he's better than I think he is. I don't think he's some great Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. He might win it, but I don't see him as a top five, guy in the NFL draft, NFL quarterback type of guy who does really well. But I think he should have a big year. I mean, they're the three best teams, Dean, unless I'm missing something. So I think, and the way Georgia and Alabama are, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. If they're hanging on that fourth or fifth spot, they're probably going to get in. So if they're playing really well at the end of the year and both have one's undefeated, one has a loss, I still think we could see both getting again.
Okay, fact or fiction, Stetson Bennett will be Georgia's starting quarterback the entire year.
Fact. I don't see why not.
Okay,
That's
okay.
that's Kirby's guy, and if he's safe with the football, doesn't turn it over, there's no need to make a switch. Although it's probably the deepest and most talented quarterback room in the country, Stetson just led him to a national championship, and he's got arm strength. There were a lot of times where he threw the ball in the air 50 plus yards. I think his arm is a little better than people give it credit for. And he knows how to run. We said it all last year. One of the biggest reasons he was a starter is because of his mobility, able to run. So I'm going to say fact there again.
Hey, let me challenge you. Not that I necessarily. Let me just put this in there though. In 2018, there was a lot of grief that Kirby got for not playing Justin Fields, or by the end revisionist history, not starting Justin Fields. This is not the same thing. Okay, first of all, Justin was a freshman at Georgia, and having watched him play on the field, he played like a freshman at times. And then he had good games like he did against Tennessee, right? Um, but why is it that just because Stetson won the national championship, that means that he will be the starter for sure? Or am I oversimplifying it?
I think you might be. You know that you can win one with him. Now, can they win
Right.
one with Carson Beck? It's possible, but you
Yeah.
don't know that right now. You know that Stetson Bennett, of course, he's going to have to do more. I think the defense might take a small step backwards, and you don't have a guy like James Cook on the roster. I think Kenny McIntosh can help you in the passing game, but he's not a guy who I expect to split out wide and play like a receiver at times. So I don't think the running back room is as deep. So I do think he's going to be asked to do more. But at the end of the day, he made the throws to beat Alabama when it mattered most. He dominated a great Michigan defense that we heard about all season long. Uh, and you know what you're getting with him. This is going to be his sixth year working on his doctorate, I guess, at Georgia, the pharmacy degree. He's
He's
been there
just,
for a while. Yeah, he knows the playbook inside and out. I don't want to continue to say he's the safe pick, but you know what you're getting from him. And he already led you to a national championship. So anytime, if they do mix it up a little bit, there's going to be some question marks there, in my opinion.
he's the only player in college football history to get Social Security benefits and be and still play. All right, you can think of some for me too, Matt. Right now, I'm going to plug the book, DAWGSTRUCTION, Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry, Ryan Curley, Dylan Weber. This was this took a while to get done, but and Matt can tell you, this is what people are getting excited about now. All of a sudden, make sure you're picking. If you pick up DAWGSTRUCTION today, you get the magazine for free. Now, if you just want the magazine, that's fine. You can pick it up with the link down below. If you're in Athens, you can go to Red Zone and pick it up on Clayton Street. I'm running out of books, y'all. get it now before I have to order them again because it's a little bit of a process when I have to order the books. Now, Matt, you can give me fact or
Okay.
fictions as well, but I'll keep going with you.
Okay.
Fact or fiction? South Carolina will be Georgia's toughest road game.
I'm going to go fiction. That was something that I was going to give to you
Oh,
because
now
in
you're
my
gonna.
eyes, I
Okay.
know. Well, I was going to ask you about Kentucky. Is Kentucky on the road Georgia's maybe toughest game of the year? I think it's definitely their toughest road game of the year. South Carolina could get tricky. They just don't have near the depth
Yeah.
that Georgia does, and it's early in the season. So I think later in the year maybe they could get clicking a little bit, but I think Kentucky's a
Carolina.
team. Yeah, but I think Kentucky's going to be the probably the toughest game of the season, especially on the road. We know what it's like covering games up there. It can get pretty tricky towards the end of the season. A
Yeah.
little cold up there. So,
Very cold.
but I mean, we talked earlier in this week. Kentucky's only beaten Georgia 4 times since 1990. Georgia appears to have their number, but this is not, your grandfather's Kentucky team either. I think
Four times.
90, 96,
90 they
09.
90 I don't think they beat them in 90. Now I'm looking it up right now. But go ahead.
That great Georgia 1990 team.
Well, they were
But
they were they were 4-7 and they beat Alabama. I know that part. They only had two.
yeah,
They did lose to Kentucky in 1990. So 1996, 1996, 2006, 2009. Yeah.
yeah, but back, in I guess recent memory, I mean, Kentucky and Vanderbilt's were kind of automatic wins. That's not the same anymore with Kentucky. That is a respectable program, especially on the road. But I think Georgia should not have a ton of problem with them. Will Levis, a lot of people think he's could be the top 5 quarterback in the draft, first round guy. Certainly didn't see that out of him in Athens last year, but a lot of that had to do with Georgia's defense as well.
Yeah, I don't want to, be all over that guy, but I was
Yeah.
rewatching some of the coverage of the Georgia Michigan game. This was the SEC folks after both Michigan and Alabama had played, and the discussion was Alabama's not going to be able to run the ball the way they did against Cincinnati and have success that way, and they didn't. You know, so I'll give you one more fact or fiction. Fact or fiction? Georgia's defense will lead the team this year versus its offense. So it's still going to be defense heavy. I'm going to give you some slack here. You go do your thing.
Oh, I still think that's a fact. There's so many young,
Okay.
talented players on Georgia's defense that I think are going to shine this year. Maybe, I mean, the average Georgia fan might not know what MJ Sherman brings to the table, or Jamon Dumas Johnson, or Kamari Lassiter, who could win the other cornerback position. But guys on the defensive line, like your guy Zion Logue,
Yeah.
maybe Nazir Stackhouse, these guys could be household names by the middle of the season. So I think there's a lot of hungry, young, talented defenders who are going to step up and make a lot of plays. So they might not be one of the best defenses in college football history like we saw last year, but I expect them to be one of the best in the SEC and possibly one of the best in the country. So I think Georgia's offense will be plenty good. I don't know if they're going to be as good last year because the more I think about
Yeah.
it, Zamir White was really good. James Cook was really good. But I mean, the tight ends are going to help more and more. I like the receivers that they're bringing to the table, especially with a healthy Don Blaylock and Kyrus Jackson, who people just forget about all the time. If Arian Smith is healthy, maybe we see even more explosion out of the
Well,
passing
it's
game.
it's
But
health on the
yeah,
receiver side of the
100%.
ball.
100%. And we've had some guys, or they've had some guys dinged up on defense as well. But I still think that will be a stronger part of the team than the offense.
I've got a bunch of Kentucky friends, and they play 8 home games. I mean, that's a lot for Kentucky.
Yeah, seems like a lot for anyone,
Well,
especially Georgia, who plays a neutral game to start the
right.
season a lot, and they've got a game in Jacksonville. So, and
Georgia
that's
can't.
two.
Georgia
Yeah,
can never play 8 home games because of
yeah.
Florida, but they play the only road games they've got are Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Mizzou. I'll tell you, man. At first, when I was looking at this, I was like, man, Kentucky should probably win 10 games. I don't know about that, but they shouldn't have 7 wins. I mean, they have got a lot of with the team they've got, particularly with the Gators at the beginning of the season. I mean, should they win? They should kind of win that game. Am I wrong?
Against who again?
The Gators
Florida.
down there. That's
I think
probably a
Kentucky
coin
can
flip.
absolutely win that game. I mean, Florida's still kind of in rebuilding mode with the new staff. We don't know what we're getting with Anthony Richardson still. I think folks down in Gainesville think he could be a superstar, but
He's
dude has
he's
to be
just
able to
like the
throw the
Levis
ball
kid, though,
efficiently.
Matt. He's
Yeah.
just like the Levis kid,
Yeah.
where there's a lot of hope there for. I don't know. I mean, I know that those guys fit the prototype for an NFL quarterback, but I'm not. Well, you got to produce too at some stage.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson did not have a great 2021.
No. I mean, you can only have potential to have a great season for so many years. Eventually, he's going to have to do it. This is a big year for him. My factor fiction for you,
Okay,
Dean, is not necessarily Georgia related, but is Tennessee the second best team in the East? Factor
man, I
fiction.
I just talked about this.
I know you did.
I mean, but and that's okay because Georgia fans like to talk about the Vols. It's either them or Kentucky, but this is fact or fiction. What was the which one? Fact is
It's
it fact?
factor fiction. Is Tennessee's the second best team in the East?
I think that's fiction just because of Kentucky, but
Yeah,
I don't
it's one
know
of the
how.
two.
I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how far of fiction we're going there. I mean,
Yeah.
are we talking about like when your kid really lies, or are we talking about like a white lie?
Yeah.
A part of me wants to. I mean, it's hard to say Kentucky's better than Tennessee when they're not beating Tennessee, and they didn't beat them last year. Now let me go back to 20. I think they beat their skulls in. Yeah, they beat
Well,
Tennessee's brains in 20. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I think it's all going to come down to that matchup, right? Whoever wins that game is probably the second best team. So I don't remember that game at all off the
But
top of
see,
my head last year. We were probably traveling or something, but I don't know where they play this year.
they they
Maybe that has
play
something to do with
they play at Neyland, but Kentucky's lost 3 of the last 4. And
it. Yeah.
but they just drug Tennessee's face through the concrete, man. In 20, I was driving to Tuscaloosa, and South Carolina beat Auburn that day, or so, there
Yeah, I
was
think
some
you're right.
games where I was like watching the TV, going, "What the hell is going on right now?" But I was listening to the Tennessee folks, Bob, I think it's Bob Lee, and they were straight embarrassed with how bad Kentucky just kicked their ass, and they beat them 34-7. But that was a Kentucky team that got jobbed against Auburn. They took a touchdown away from them. That was a game changer. And then they lost by a point to Ole Miss in overtime. They certainly, coming out of the Tennessee game, should have been 3-1 at minimum in 2020. And then they lost to Missouri on the road. It just Anyway, I don't know. Hey, look, we're gonna do a few more of these in the very near future. Make sure you stick to Dog Post. Get Dog Instruction while you can. We're giving you that preview for free.